You know, I think the Ugly Sonic trailer taught us something important.
Meow?
What the hell is even that?
All people really cared about was Sonic. No one really said anything about if James Marsden or Tika Sumpter were the right actors to play Tom and Maddie. Because unless it's Robotnik, no one really cared about the human characters. They weren't important. All people really wanted to see was Team Sonic on screen as accurately as possible doing Sonic stuff. And I think to an extent we got that. The Sonic movies aren't perfect, but they're pretty good. The human characters, however, besides Robotnik, are the weakest part of the movies, especially in Sonic 2, where they spend most of their time in Hawaii at a fake wedding where they have little to no relevance on the plot. And as we get deeper into the Sonic universe, bringing in Knuckles as an antagonist, the power of the Master Emerald, Robotnik's giant robots, Super Sonic, and in the upcoming Sonic 3 we're getting Shadow the Hedgehog.
I am the ultimate life form.
These down-to-earth characters like Tom and Maddie aren't going to have any purpose in the story. I'm sorry, but what's a small-town sheriff and a veterinarian going to do when perfect chaos floods a city or Final Hazard is trying to collide a space colony with Earth? What purpose will the Donut Lord serve other than to take screen time away from the characters we actually tuned in to see? As you can imagine, I'm not a fan of any of the live-action characters who take focus away from Team Sonic, but there is one I dislike more than any other, and that's Wade Wipple. I fully admit that this is a personal bias, but I hate characters like Wade. Wade is an overweight man-child, a dumb loser. Characters like Wade are incapable of accomplishing anything intentionally, only able to succeed by complete accident or by doing something stupid. Their whole lives are a joke, a series of nat ones that somehow still end up with them succeeding, and I just hate watching them bumblefuck their way through a plot because I find them pathetic and simply not funny.
Who's the idiot?
Does it matter?
So when it turned out that the Knuckles TV series would be more accurately renamed Wade Wipple, a Knuckles the Echidna story, I wasn't exactly thrilled. But like everyone else, I was just hoping to get more Knuckles content. Imagine my surprise when, even with such a low bar, I was still somehow disappointed. The Knuckles TV series can be pretty accurately described as Eurotrip meets Kingpin, but made family friendly and sometimes occasionally featuring Knuckles the Echidna. I'm not really sure what I just described to you, I just know that if someone pitched it to me as a Knuckles TV series, I'd have them thrown out a window. The series starts out promising enough, Knuckles doing very Knuckles things and references to the game so we can all point and say we recognise something, all to the tune of Scandal the Warrior, which is the show's opening theme. It's an absolute banger of a song, but fuck 'em, they didn't write it. They chose the Warrior as the theme song for a show about Knuckles the Echidna Warrior in a show where they say the word warrior about once every 5 seconds.
Warrior.
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 Warrior. Warrior. Warrior.
Warrior.
Warrior. Warrior. Warrior.
It's not exactly brimming with subtlety, is it?
You got Harley Quinn out of Harleen Quinzel. Nice work, genius.
Knuckles is having trouble adapting to a peaceful life in Green Hills where he now lives with Sonic and Tails in the Wachowski house, and I'm sorry, this is just weird. I'm not a massive Sonic lore nerd, but typically these characters are very independent. In fact, the only reference to parents I can even think of is in Sonic Underground.
They made a vow their mother will be found. Sonic Underground.
Maddie is even grounding Knuckles, and Jesus Christ, woman, leave some forehead for the rest of us. Forget tic-tac-toe, I could write the entire script to this series on that dome. Anyway, Knuckles is visited by Chief Pachacamac, who's voiced by Christopher Lloyd, which is pretty disappointing. Because Christopher Lloyd is 85 at this point. The man is a national treasure, but he's not going to be with us much longer, and I don't want one of his last acting roles to be in the Knuckles TV series. Especially as you would expect Knuckles Chieftain to act pretty much the same as him, but older. Instead, they decided to make him kind of a joke. He talks about the Mets losing again, all-you-can-eat shrimp, says that the battleground in the sky has more of a Florida feel to most people. They don't explain why Knuckles Chieftain would know a bunch of Earth culture references, but the inference is that we're having fun, just don't think about it, which is unfortunately a trend throughout the series.
In the flesh, baby.
Chief Pachacamac tells Knuckles he has to train an apprentice in the ways of the Echidna, teach him their customs, and show him their traditions in order to rebuild their tribe. The initial premise seems interesting, restoring his tribe, though not with other Echidna, at least culturally with other warriors. But why the fuck does he insist on Wade? It's never explained other than Wade wants to compete in a bowling tournament. Why does the dead leader of a warrior tribe care if Wade Wipple goes to a bowling tournament? Why do we? Why does this show exist?
Why?
We cut over to Wade, who's losing a bowling match to an 8-year-old girl, because that's basically what his character is. He's hanging out with his supposed best friend, who's holy crap, it's Howard. I mean, Julian Barrett playing some shitty bounty hunter character, but I can't not see him as Howard Moon from The Mighty Boosh.
I'm coming at you like a beam, like a ray, like a laser. Don't try and stop me, I'm quick, like lightning. I'm frightening. Ow!
So Wade gets cut from his bowling team and replaced by Little Susie because he's a loser. Then Knuckles appears and says, "Hey, it's my destiny to get you to Reno, Nevada to compete in a bowling tournament." I'm Knuckles the Echidna from the popular Sonic franchise, by the way. You might not have noticed that based on how irrelevant it is to this plotline. So Knuckles and Wade set off on a road trip to Reno, and that's basically how the story begins.
Let's do this! Destiny awaits!
Something you'll notice pretty quickly is when Knuckles is a secondary character, he's pretty funny because he only talks once every 5 minutes, but when he has his own TV show, he sets the tone and you realise Knuckles really only has one joke, and it's usually something along the lines of, "Who is this king of burgers? He must be a fearsome warrior indeed to have conquered an entire food product." It can be funny, but it does get pretty monotonous that he really only has one thing to say.
One day, I hope to visit this cool ranch of Doritos and bask in all of its splendor.
We also learned Wade's tragic backstory, that his dad abandoned him in a TJ Maxx when he was a kid, and when I first heard this, I thought it was so absurd that it just had to be related to Sonic, or Gun, or just something to do with the plot, because it just doesn't make any sense. How do you leave your child in a TJ Maxx and abandon your family? I don't mean ethically, I mean logistically. Even if you somehow get outside your kid's line of sight, you just walk out the store, get in your car, and drive off to Reno, you have no money, no clothes, none of your belongings, nowhere to live. The idea was so farcical that I assumed it had to be aliens, or falling through a portal to the Mushroom Planet, but no, he did just abandon his family, and his dad literally is just in Reno as a professional bowler. Which turns out is Wade's entire motivation. He wants to compete in the tournament because his dad will be there, but as it turns out, all he needs to do is walk up to his dad and say, "Hey, it's me, Wade, your son," and his dad's like, "Cool, let's catch up." It's not like there's any notion that he needs to compete against his dad in the tournament to earn his respect or anything, which means bowling is superfluous to the entire series. You can really feel the writers struggling to come up with any reason Knuckles and Wade would team up. Wade's a loser, he can't actually fight, so why would he hang out with Knuckles? Well, can Wade do any kind of sport like bowling? Yeah, but then why would Knuckles care? I don't know, but we've already committed to bowling, just keep writing.
This tournament is my destiny.
There's also these two chuckle fucks. This knockoff Team Rocket are gun agents who betrayed the organization so that they can capture Knuckles and sell him to the buyer for...
Lots and lots
I
of money.
know that.
The buyer is a character whose name you'll only know if you look it up on IMDb or pay very close attention to promotional posters. The buyer isn't like a nom de plume they constantly use to ominously refer to him. They say it maybe once throughout the whole series, they just don't give him a name because despite being the villain, he's honestly not that important, just a generic antagonist who wants Knuckles for his vague, poorly defined power. So Jesse and James over here actually do manage to capture Knuckles at some point, and the female gun agent has this strange speech about how Knuckles is acting like she's no one compared to Robotnik and how she knows everything about him, but he knows nothing about her.
Because while I know everything about you, I promise you know nothing about me. But when this is all over, you will.
Oh wow, you must be like Robotnik's daughter, maybe his niece? Are you involved in Project Shadow? I mean, after that speech, you must be someone of some importance, right? Well, no. She apparently spent her life studying extraterrestrials, which is never elaborated on. Then she joined up with Gun after Sonic happened. Gun decided they weren't going to eliminate the aliens, so she got put on desk duty. So she is in fact absolutely no one. Oh, and the black guy's motivation is that he likes punching people and money. Real deep characters, these guys.
And that's why I signed up for Gun. So I can get paid to beat up on superpowered freaks like your little alien friends.
But obviously, because Knuckles is kidnapped, that means it's up to Wade to rescue him. And remember, Wade is an idiot who can't do anything intentionally, so because Wade has delusions of grandeur far outpacing his actual competence, we have to sit through a dream sequence where Wade imagines himself as a secret agent who would actually be capable of saving Knuckles. Characters like this always seem to have an obsession with escapism and being cool, but the fact that he actually goes to a store and buys all the equipment from his fantasy just shows how retarded he actually is. Like, he thinks this plan that involves him rappelling down on dental floss and having a fireworks celebration is actually viable. It's one thing to be stupid, it's another to not even comprehend how stupid you actually are. Obviously, his plan immediately fails. I mean, when we see the black gun agent bang the power fist together, nothing happens, but when Wade does it, they explode. There's no functional reason the gloves would do this, it's just because Wade is so pathetic that reality warps around him to ensure that he can't do anything right. Then he just leaves one of them on the floor, hides, and the bad guy just picks it up. And any sane person should be thinking, okay, he's got a plan, this is an obvious trap, it must be the old backfiring gauntlet trick. But no, Wade's just an idiot. The only reason I can think for this is the writers realised that the gauntlets essentially give you superpowers because they're built to fight Sonic characters, and if you use them on normal people, they would just immediately lose. So they had to somehow give one to the bad guy to even the fight, and the best they could come up with was Wade just leaves it on the ground for no reason. And remember, Wade can only succeed by accident or doing something stupid, so that's how he saves Knuckles. Later, when Wade goes home to meet with his mother and sister, it's well, there's no correct way to say this. It's incredibly Jewish.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
Like, it's weirdly instructive on the Jewish faith while serving no bearing to the plot, what little there is of it, but they keep comparing Knuckles to Judaism, and it's really awkward and kinda weird to keep imposing religion onto Knuckles the fucking Echidna.
I'm now the last of my tribe.
Our tribe has been through some tough times, too. He's basically Jewish.
So I spent the next 14 days wandering through an alien desert.
Joshua wandered for 40 years, lost in the desert, looking for the promised land.
So, is he Jewish?
Oh, yeah, and half, I think.
But the character I really want to talk about is his sister, because she baffles me. She's introduced as an FBI agent, but I never believed it for a second, because she always seems more like she's playing pretend, and she behaves like a child.
That spoon in your hand is my spoon.
Oh, you know what? Sorry, that is your spoon.
Like, I actually thought this character was supposed to be retarded, and I don't mean like I thought she was stupid, I mean I thought she was supposed to have a genuine mental disability. But the part that clinches it for me is that during dinner, she's getting frustrated with the conversation, so she grabs a fork and stabs Wade in the shoulder. That's not normal human behavior, that's someone who can't regulate their emotions having an autistic fit.
Mom, I'm just asking him what he did on that day, okay? And he's saying crazy things.
Also, at some point, Wade gets a bounty put on his head and becomes a fugitive, and it's never explained how or why. As far as I can tell, the entire trip to Reno takes place over 3 days. The first night Knuckles gets kidnapped, they drive to morning. The second night he stays at his mum's house, and the third night they actually arrive in Reno, which seems to be about right, as it takes about 15.5 hours to drive from Montana to Reno, Nevada. And he gets the bounty put on him maybe hours after dealing with the gun agents on the first night, so who the hell put the bounty on him? The buyer? I don't think he even knows who Wade is or would care even if he did. The gun agents? They betrayed the organization. They don't have the kind of pull to put a bounty on someone. You can't even claim it involves black market contacts. It's broadcast over public radio. It's a legal bounty. So who the hell put a $100,000 bounty on Wade Wipple in mere hours? You know, maybe it was the owner of the truck that Wade just casually steals, because I guess the writers forgot he's supposed to be a police deputy.
Sweet truck.
Drive us.
But the only reason for the bounty is so we can have a fight scene where we're expected to believe that an 80-year-old Stockard Channing can throw around bounty hunters like they're made of paper. I don't care if you do Pilates 3 times a week and used to teach Krav Maga, that doesn't let you throw around adult men like ragdolls and slam them into counters like you're John Wick while protecting the Shabbat candles as Jewish music is playing in the background. Like I said, this show gets weirdly into Judaism.
Although we, and indeed the whole BBC, respect people's rights to believe in whatever they wish, because we don't want to get into the shit on this one.
You might be asking at this point, why haven't I really said anything about Knuckles? Well, along with barely being in the show at all, even when he is there, he's not really doing anything. Most of what he does that could be considered important is in the first half of the first episode. As soon as he meets Wade, he kind of takes a back seat, not really having much impact on the plot, but always being around to chime in with some kind of Knuckles-related humour.
Can I kick it? Yes, you can. Can I kick it?
Ha! Kicked!
In the first episode he gets kidnapped, the second episode he spends kidnapped, and in the third episode, well, you know when you go around a friend's house and their family doesn't understand they're supposed to alter their normal behaviour around guests, and your friend and his parents start shouting at each other and you're just standing there wishing you were anywhere else? That's kind of what happens with Knuckles. He just sits there as a very awkward dinner guest while the family has a whole domestic situation in front of him.
Ow! Mom! You wanna fight? Let's do this!
Okay, let's go.
So help me God, do not make me use Krav Maga in my own home.
Help me. But it might surprise you to learn that the first half of the series is when Knuckles is the most prominent. After that, he just kind of fades into the background, and that's no more evident than in episode 4. Now, if we take the entirety of every scene Knuckles is in for this episode, including just his voice, he's in 3 minutes, 7 seconds of this 21 minute, 40-second episode. But that's if I'm being incredibly generous for what constitutes a scene and what counts as Knuckles being there. I mean, at one point, Wade speaks in Knuckles' voice, and I included that.
I'm Knuckles!
Hey, Wade, don't make this weirder than it already is.
But if we just count the moments where Knuckles is visible on screen, 57 seconds, and about half of that is just an ending shot of him on a motorcycle he inexplicably knows how to drive where he isn't talking. So more like 33 seconds. 33 seconds in a show called Knuckles. This isn't some 24-episode season where we can afford to have a quirky episode about the main character. It's a 6-episode miniseries, so if Knuckles isn't in it, all we're left with is Wade.
Wade is going to be just fine.
No, I'm not!
So Wade gets kidnapped by Howard from the Mighty Boosh, who's a bounty hunter. Remember? We set that up in episode 1, and then Wade got a bounty put on him. Neither of these things make any sense, but they do connect to each other logically, as long as you just don't think about it.
Again, it's like poetry, so if they rhyme.
I mean, wasn't the whole point of Green Hills that it's the most boring place on Earth where there's nothing interesting except Sonic? Why is there a bounty hunter living here, and why is he best friends with a police deputy, and why is he on a bowling team, and why is he played by Julian Barrett?
Don't kill me. I've got so much to give.
So Wade goes to the Great Battleground in the sky where he talks to Chief Pachacamac, who is still making zero attempts to come off like an Echidna warrior, but he does make a bunch of references to Earth culture that he absolutely shouldn't know.
For most people, this place has more of a Florida feel, with all you can eat shrimp.
Looking back at it, this conversation is so uncomfortable, and it's because they made the decision to not actually have the two characters in the same shot. Instead, they both talk to each other by looking directly into the camera, and I have no idea why they decided to film it so awkwardly. It couldn't possibly have been a scheduling conflict with one of the actors. One of these characters doesn't exist.
Now, please open your mouth.
I'm not really comfortable with that.
Just do it, man.
But what this episode is really about is explaining Knuckles' backstory for a low-budget rock opera, and when I heard that, I immediately had to go and see if Julian Barrett wrote this episode. I know I keep bringing it up, but The Mighty Boosh has a strong musical aspect, and Julian is the one singing in this episode, and they're kind of songs similar to this.
Wheels up inside ya, finding an entrance where they can. Wheels up inside ya, finding an entrance where they can.
But no, this episode was written by James M. Good old James M. So I guess just a big fan of the Boosh? So this is supposed to be Knuckles' backstory, but it's not, because they fucked it up almost immediately. They show Knuckles and his dad fighting the owls and his dad dying in his arms, but in Sonic 2 we see Knuckles' dad go off to battle without him and Knuckles say he never saw him again. You only had 2 movies worth of continuity you had to adhere to, and you couldn't even do that.
Those were the last words he spoke to me. I never saw him again.
But look, I'm a sucker for musicals, and it is a catchy song. All the references to the games are pretty cool, and the practical effects, like it's actually a stage play, are pretty creative, and it's interesting to see how they make certain things work, like Wade wearing a Knuckles helmet to replicate Knuckles gliding. There's a lot of things to like about this rock opera part, but it's just not what I want from a Knuckles TV series. I didn't need a Knuckles backstory, but if you're going to do it, it feels like a disservice to tell it in the form of a comedy musical. So while I can see the positives in a general sense, I can't really see how this adds anything to the series overall, and it just feels like creative filler.
Thanks, everybody. Got it. Could have been an email.
But the whole point of this is to explain to Wade that the power of a warrior comes from a warrior's heart, and then this happens. What the fuck? Let's recap what we just saw. Wade propelled himself vertically upward, exploding through, let's say, thick wood and not the cardboard it looks like, 20 feet into the air and did a superhero landing. How? How the fuck did that happen? Sonic and Knuckles can do bullshit like this because they're aliens with poorly defined electrical energy that gives them superpowers. Humans can't do shit like this just by learning to believe in themselves.
It just raises too many questions.
And here's the thing, it's never brought up as something he could potentially do again. It's never even referenced that he did it in the first place. A human being basically just flew and everyone's like, okay, why not, moving on. The rest of the episode is just a duel between Wade and the bounty hunter where they come at each other on a motorcycle and a child's bicycle wielding Japanese katanas. The show is clearly trying to be funny for how absurd this all is, but here's the thing about absurdist comedy. If you don't absolutely nail it, if you fumble and the joke falls flat, the whole scene just becomes boring nonsense because if it's not funny, it's just random. They even do the talking over a distance joke. It's not that funny in Shazam, it's definitely not funny here.
What? I'm sorry, I'm not hearing you all that well. I can hear part of it, but not all of it. What?
But finally, we get to Reno, and because I'm an idiot, I saw all this and thought, ooh, Casino Zone. But no, that's not what this is at all. Nothing about these next 2 episodes has anything to do with the Casino Zone, and in fact, this is the point where Knuckles starts to get weird. It's like he hasn't been in the series for so long that they forgot his personality is supposed to be very serious and oblivious to Earth culture, but now he talks about getting massages and margaritas and he starts speaking in ways you wouldn't expect Knuckles to talk.
We're cool. Yeah, we're mad cool.
Come on.
But finally, we get to meet him, Pistol Pete Whipple, and I can finally talk about this bafflingly written character. Now remember, the whole reason Wade came to this tournament was so he could meet his dad, and he had to be part of a bowling team and in the tournament to come here for some reason. So it'll probably be quite a while before these two interact. Oh wait, there he goes, just walking up to him right away. So why did any of this matter? He's apparently been here for the past 30 years just being a professional bowling champion. If you could just walk up and talk to him, why did you wait this long? And what does being in the tournament have to do with any of this? These questions, and many like them, will not be answered. Knuckles pulls a Cyrano de Bergerac and feeds Wade some lines, mostly just to remind us that Knuckles is a character in the show because it's not like he has anything else to do, but it only lasts about 30 seconds before Wade just starts to talk to him normally. Now, I really wanted Pistol Pete to be a good person at heart because it just felt so obvious that he wouldn't be. That he would just be a deadbeat dad who only cares about himself. And he is, that's what they went with. Pistol Pete's betrayed Wade to the gun agents so they can capture Knuckles. Remember those two chuckle fucks? At the end of episode 2, they're standing outside a destroyed lodge talking about how they need to recapture Knuckles, then they don't appear again until episode 5 where they're being brought to the byre tied up with sacks over their heads. So I guess something happened between those 2 points, but the show doesn't feel like elaborating. That would be like plot or something, and we've got a lot of jokes about Wade masturbating we need to get in.
Wade, these marks, they seem to be everywhere.
Oh, okay, enough time with Zap, thank you.
Okay.
But the interesting thing about Pistol Pete is that despite the writers intending for him to be a scumbag, they failed to write a scumbag. See, when Wade says he's here for the tournament, Pistol Pete says, like father, like son, and may the best man win. In the first meeting, he seems to genuinely like Wade and be interested in reconnecting with him. You might be thinking, well, the gun agents already got to him, so he's just faking being nice so he can trick him. No. See, the first time they speak is right before the scene where the agents are brought to the byre, so they haven't even gone to Reno yet. They couldn't have met Pistol Pete. So as far as I'm concerned, this first meeting, totally genuine, which he ends by saying, after we're done bowling, let's catch up on lost time. And Deadbeat Dad Writing 101 dictates he should ditch any quality time because he's selfish, but no, they meet up after bowling and spend quality time together. Now I'm fairly certain between their first meeting and this meeting, a night was supposed to have passed, so I'm pretty sure that's when he met with the agents. Which means everything he says now is bullshit, so you'd think there's nothing that could happen in this scene that would go against the narrative that he's a deadbeat dad who doesn't care about his son, right? Well, at one point he says he never forgot him and pulls out a CD case containing every mixed CD Wade has sent him each year since 1995. If the show expects me to believe this is a dad that doesn't care about his son, it's doing a piss poor job at showing it. This isn't something as simple as a picture he's kept in his wallet that he's never had to look at in the past 3 decades. These are CDs that come 1 per year and he's kept 29 years of them. And that CD case, either Wade sent it him on the first one or he went out and bought it himself to keep them all together. Either way, he's had that 29 years too. The mum says that Pistol Pete is great at convincing people to love him and that's usually when he leaves, but this isn't just a comforting lie or empty promises. All those CDs are personalized. He couldn't have faked them. So they have to be the real deal. I'm just saying, this isn't the behavior of a man who doesn't care about his child, which is why it's so fucking weird at the end of the episode when he says he doesn't care about his child.
There's only one Whipple that matters in the greater Reno area. And I'm afraid it's not you, dear boy.
Pistol Pete might be a scumbag, but my god, I still kind of want to be this guy. I mean, look at him. He's covered head to toe in Union Jacks and his bowling ball is transparent with a cup of tea inside. This man is a fucking legend. I wish I was half as cool as he is. Wait, it feels like I'm forgetting something. Oh right, Knuckles! He's in this show too, occasionally. Well, he shows up at the start to do that Cyrano de Bergerac thing, and he's missing for a long time until the end of the episode where he's in a hotel room watching a Spanish soap opera. Now, you'd think for the bowling scenes, Knuckles would be there to cheer him on, especially since his mum and sister are, and it's not like Knuckles is having to hide because he's an alien, everyone just thinks he's a mascot. So you'd think with him considering training Wade for the tournament to be his destiny, he would be in the stands. But, you know, Knuckles is expensive to animate, so let's just not think about why he's missing from yet another episode.
Próximamente en el canal en español terreno. La última pasión.
Ooh.
But with Knuckles and Wade pulling one over on the agents, we finally get a real fight in the series. Characters that are equipped to pose an actual threat to Knuckles. Finally, it's over. Yeah, that lasted about 3 minutes, and by 3 minutes I mean for about 70 seconds it's happening off screen while we get more painful interaction between Wade and his mentally retarded sister.
I'm doing an FBI thing where I slip my own hands out of these handcuffs by dislocating my thumb. Here I go. Ow! Oh!
Fun fact, you can clearly see that Wade is on floor 2 here, and the penthouse is essentially floor 23, but Wade appears about 30 seconds later saying he got in through the back stairs. If you read the news article in the first episode, not only did Wade eat 38 Hot Pockets in 30 minutes, he's the Pump King, eating 12 pumpkin pies in 30 minutes, he holds the Pie-Eyed title for eating 57 liquidized apple pies in 10 minutes, then he went through 12 meatloaves in 17 minutes at Meatloaf Meltdown. The deputy said he'd always been a hungry child. Yeah, I don't doubt it. What I do doubt is that he managed to run 21 flights of stairs in 30 seconds. Call me cynical, but I don't think this hungry boy has the stamina for it. The agents are defeated when these ring portals seem to connect to each other. I mean, she gets sucked in one and comes out the other, which has never been shown to be how rings work at all. But they collide and explode, so I guess these guys are just dead? I mean, if they exist in the space between the portals and the space between the portals is eliminated, are they just crushed into oblivion? Well, there's no time to think about that because we have to get back to the most important thing in this show, bowling. Yeah, about half this episode is focused on the bowling finals, naturally with the target audience of a Knuckles show being classic Sonic fans and kids who watch the Sonic movies, the best thing to focus on is two adult men bowling.
Let's get ready to roll some bowling balls. That's popular?
Pistol Pete's done a complete heel turn, becoming a massive unrepentant dick. He might not be a nice person, but he's still spitting mad facts. I mean, tell me how this is a lie.
You're a loser, Wade. You always have been, and you always will be.
I'm still not buying it though, his characterization is all over the place. What am I supposed to believe, that he just saved 29 years of CDs from his estranged son on the off chance he shows up again one day and can use them to emotionally manipulate him into loving him? He'd have to be more sociopathic than Dennis from Always Sunny.
Don't ask me questions, I'm not taking questions! The Golden God is not taking questions, I am the Golden God!
But like I said, I was hoping Pistol Pete would turn out to be a very flawed but ultimately good person, because the deadbeat dad trope was so obvious and cliched. And the actor actually does a really good job explaining to Wade why he left and comes across as genuinely regretful, which I suppose is the point of him being such a manipulative person, but it feels like wasted potential. You could have done so much more with this. Have Pete being genuinely sorry that he gave up on his children because he was a selfish coward. Have him try and sacrifice himself to protect Wade from the bad guys and end with them rebuilding their relationship and making up for lost time. Sure, it's not less cliche, but it would have at least had some heart to it.
I just never had the damn courage to write you back. Because I'm a coward. A total schmuck.
But this is the championship, the final battle, father versus son, everything we've been building to. This is for all the marbles, and Knuckles is nowhere to be seen. He's at the hotel bar watching it on a TV and eating halal bread. So, is Knuckles just Jewish now?
So, is he Jewish?
Oh, yeah, on his half, I think.
Whatever, the buyer attacks. Remember him? He's the only character in the show that's had less screen time than Knuckles. I don't know how he knows the gun agents failed or why he suddenly decided to 1v1 Knuckles, but the show needed some sort of climax. Okay, actual final boss time. Knuckles versus the buyer. Let's go. Okay, Knuckles lost. That's disappointing.
Disappointed!
Wade throws some bowling balls at him while giving a speech about friendship, family, the heart of the cards, whatever, as the show desperately tries to come up with clips to show that Knuckles was supposed to have had some kind of arc. Knuckles gets back up, activates the Flames of Disaster, and wins. There's nothing really to say about the fight, it's pretty boring and unimpactful. The Flames of Disaster look pretty cool, probably would have been pretty interesting to see him get that power for real instead of recap for a musical.
Cause now I wield the flames of disaster.
Pistol Pete gets punched out by an 80-year-old Stockard Channing and ends the show with a boot on his chest. Wade claims the championship trophy, they freeze frame, and Knuckles says The Warrior is his favourite song, and that's Knuckles.
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 That's what I said, Knuckles.
You're not saying that.
I genuinely don't know who this show is for. If you're an adult who grew up with Sonic, you're probably watching this because you wanted to see Knuckles, but it's not even about Knuckles. He's barely in the series. In fact, we're going to get super autistic about this, so brace yourselves. The second half of the series, the last 3 episodes, are about 77 minutes long, which is roughly a feature-length movie. Do you want to know how much screen time Knuckles has in those 77 minutes? Because I counted. Of those 77 minutes, Knuckles is a total screen time of 9 minutes and 34 seconds. The Kane from Citizen Kane has more screen time than Knuckles does in the Knuckles TV series. Look, I'm not saying Knuckles needs to be in every single frame, but I think a good rule of thumb here is to ask, when Knuckles isn't on screen, how much do we notice it? In the Sonic movies, Sonic wasn't in every single scene, but it wasn't a glaring issue because the other characters were entertaining, or at least felt like they served a purpose to the overall plot. When Knuckles isn't on screen, it just feels like filler, but when he is on screen, he doesn't have anything to do because it's not his story, and we're just sadly resigning ourselves to watching him be reduced to a novelty in his own show.
I should wear my finest hat.
Sure. Put on an adorable hat.
But for kids who just enjoyed the Sonic movies, there's still nothing here to appeal to them. At its core, Knuckles is a road trip movie about a son trying to reunite with his estranged father by competing in a bowling tournament, learning he was better off without him, and becoming determined to win the competition. What kid is going to be engaged by 2 adult men bowling interspersed with Jewish dinner traditions?
I'm not sure how much you know about the traditions of the Jewish people.
I know very little. but I admire your tiny hats.
Knuckles ultimately doesn't expand the Sonic movie universe in any meaningful way and focuses on a character that no one wanted to see more of. Even if you're just looking for some nostalgia bait, the few nods to the games aren't anything worth getting excited about. They're also very few and far between. You can easily skip the Knuckles TV series and have missed nothing. But those are just my thoughts. Let me know what you think down below and I'll catch you in the next one. So yeah, bye.
Wade, these marks, they seem to be everywhere.
Okay, enough time with Zap, thank you.
Okay,